And welcome back, everyone, to Box Office Report. Today on the 1st of March, 2026. And I'm a little annoyed, not at the box office, just because I had done I had like 5 videos I got to do today. Technically, I'm pre-recording one for tomorrow, but still. Actually, if I'm going to be honest, having did that video once already, I can save and just do that video tomorrow. So that leaves me with 4. That doesn't sound like much of a change, but believe me, it actually takes a huge load off. But regardless, no, I had redone the settings on my OBS to do the Pokemon Presents video reaction this week. I did not know my personal microphone was as quiet as it was until I on a whim re-listened to one of my videos I had already pre-recorded and realized how quiet I sounded. Now I've readjusted it. Now it should be at basically the right tone to be heard correctly, but I didn't get the box office right this week because of 2 outliers right here. Scream 7, though, debuts with $64.1 million, the highest grossing opening weekend in franchise history domestically. Goat made another $12 million, dropping 28.8%. Wuthering Heights made $6.9 million, dropping 50.3%. And then 21 Pilots, more than we ever imagined, came in number 4 at 4.3. And Epic Elvis Presley in Concert. Oh, God, whatever. Sorry, I need a new chair up here. That's something I need to invest in. It's just a new chair. Anyway, Epic Elvis Presley in Concert, $3.5 million. Now, Scream 7. This is interesting because it doesn't have the best reviews. 35% of the critics liked it. About 78% of the audience like it, which it's not bad for the audience side of things, but it's not as great as some other films, and 35% for the critics. If you average it really all out, that brings it up to, it has a score of roughly 56%. That could be a lot worse in the grand scheme of things, but it did get a $64 million opening weekend, which, no joke, is the highest opening weekend of the Scream franchise. That's a record breaker. This is now the record to beat. Mind you, most of the Scream movies have never done gangbusters amounts of money. They've done okay, clearly enough to warrant a series, but not enough to really, be considered blockbusters or anything like that. Still, at $64 million, 93.2 worldwide, this film's already close to making its money back. It's made up $45 million. You gotta assume maybe, and probably not even $40 million in marketing. The marketing of this film was kind of odd. Like, they showed you that same trailer over and over again, just snippets here and there of the movie. So yeah, I'd imagine it's maybe a grand total when you factor production and marketing together, about 80 million in total, which means it just has to hit 120, which is well within its margin of error to do. It's what, 33 million away right now? Not even. So give it 2 weeks, it probably will be, and that's not even including international. Give it a week, it probably will be over that. Which, good for Paramount, at least in that sense. I'm gonna keep my opinions to myself, frankly, on what I think of the people who run Paramount and the whole Warner Brothers, Netflix, Paramount deal. Unless someone wants me to talk about it, maybe for the next Q&A, I'll keep my comments to myself on that. All I will say is that Paramount did not have a good year last year for the movies. And they don't have a lot of movies coming out this year. So if this film can come in, make maybe 200 million in the grand scheme of things, that means if you do the math, roughly it's got to be at like 130. That means this film overall would make about $50 million profit. I don't think anyone can complain about that, to be honest. $50 million profit is solid money. But what's interesting about this is that why did it do so well this time around, despite getting terrible reviews? To me, I think it comes down to a couple things. One, it is still the Scream franchise. There's still a built-in fan base. The last film did pretty well, so it's got that goodwill coming from it. I think, though, there is also the return of Neve Campbell as your lead. Sidney Prescott was where it all started. You bring her back, you're going to have a section of fans who probably didn't come the last time around, who are going to come this time around. So I think that might have been a factor too. Mind you, 64 million isn't like breaking the doors down for money, but it's a solid opening weekend, all things considered. Then we got Goat, which made 12 million this week, only dropping not even 30%, but only being at 130. I'm not going to call it dead in the water yet. I'll wait to see what happens when Hoppers comes out, because that's direct competition. But this doesn't look good for Go. Go is around an $85 million movie. It admittedly probably didn't have a very large marketing budget. My guess is, again, around $35 million, give or take. You're looking at a film then that's probably made, weirdly enough, on $120. If this film hits $180, it'd be fine. But it has to hit $50 million more. It doesn't have that domestically, I guarantee you. It's probably going to be lucky to see $25 million more domestically, and that'd be generous. And that would put it at 155 just on the domestic side of things, if I'm being generous. But the problem isn't the domestic. Domestic, honestly, I'd say it probably will make its budget back domestically. But the problem is internationally. If the international can't match the domestic, well, then it's kind of pointless, isn't it? And to be fair, I think part of that is just, I don't know how many people actually knew this film was coming out, if we're going to be honest. It was kind of, we only ever really saw the one trailer. It was just kind of under the radar. It's a fun little film, though. I do recommend it. So I will have to wait and see. I don't have the best of hopes for it, though, especially with Hoppers this week coming out. Wuthering Heights, on the other end, $6.9 million. If I remember correctly, the film is 90 million, 80 to 90 million, I think. I'm going to lean towards the 90. The 90 sounds right in my head. I could be wrong with that. It's got probably about 50 million in marketing. You know what? I think it's actually more like 80 million, if I'm not mistaken. This is, again, I have nothing really to base this on, mind you, but I think it's 80 million, which would mean, and again, I'm personally saying it's got about 50 million in marketing. I don't know for a fact that. Very rarely can I ever find an actual marketing budget. But what I can say is that it's probably going to make its money back at minimum. If it hasn't done it yet, it will do that by the end of the week, or by the end of next week. The one last weekend, it will be in the profit range regardless, almost certainly. Mind you, I don't think this is going to be like a 300. I don't think it'll end at 300 million, or 300 million is the ceiling at best. But it's also playing a lot better internationally than it is. It's like 62.3% internationally versus 37.7%, which again is from all of one location in the world. So it shows you just still how big a movie market the U.S. is. But the bulk of the money is coming from everywhere else in the world, which tells you this seems to be resonating more on the international stage, which begs the question, why? Maybe it's because it's not, I believe it's an English book, not a American book or anything like that. So maybe it's something to do with that. Maybe it's something to do with the themes or whatever. It is very much a Twilight, 50 Shades of Grey style love story. And I do mean that in the sense that you've got two people who are the only one who's not a shit person in their own way is Anastasia Steele from 50 Shades. Otherwise, I was going to say Dory, I always did, but Christian Grey, he's kind of a shit heel, let's be honest. Edward and Bella and Jacob are all shit heel. Like, they're all just terrible people. This is no exception. It's terrible people idealizing and putting on a pedestal the idea of toxic relationships. But apparently something about that is appealing to people. So, look, I went on record saying I didn't personally care for the movie. It wasn't for me. But I recognized all the good quality filmmaking going into it, the acting, all that. Yeah, I mean, look, when I say it's a worldwide phenomenon, not really. It's just based on a very old book that, it also took a 60-some-odd% drop the second week, and then took another 50% drop the third week. So it's not doing well in terms of like its drop-offs. And I think that's kind of key. And like only a certain amount of people are going back to see this again and again. Let's see here. We have 21 Pilots, more than we ever imagined, an epic Elvis Presley in concert, which actually went up 9% this week for 14.3 million overall, which, good for any money you can make that way. This puts this at 7.8 between the two of them, which actually puts it above Wuthering Heights, which goes to show how bad Wuthering Heights is actually doing in terms of its drop-offs, that in its third week, a Elvis concert in its second week, which shouldn't be even going up, and a new concert with 21 Pilots, only making 4.3 together are able to be greater in terms of their amount of money they made than it. It also kind of shows you just how barren the movie-going landscape kind of is right now, because we only got 3 clearly big hitters right now, and even then, big is a generous statement. Scream 7's a big hitter. Fair enough. Made $64 million. I don't think you can argue that. Goat. It still made $12 million. And Wuthering Heights was a big hitter 2 weeks ago, but not so much now. In fact, actually, what is the overall total at the box office right now? That's the question I'd sometimes ask. Let's see, 74 million plus that. Okay, so let's just make that 75, 81, 85. Let's see here, 88, 89, 92, 95, 97. If you total all the films that made over $1 million, would just barely get $100 million. So, that's not bad for box office health, to be fair. And, sometimes people just want to see something they can't go to see in person. So that's why the Eras Tour was so big, and, Taylor Swift is huge. But yeah, and then you get films like Crime 101, Send Help, I Can Only Imagine, which aren't doing well. Crime 101's made $57 million in its 3rd week against against a $90 million budget, from what I understand. I Can Only Imagine 2 is currently at $13.2 million, against something like 8-something million budget. It's not very large budget, but still not making its money back. And then Send Help is currently at about $87 million, if I check. Yeah, $87 million, against about a $45 million budget, roughly. So, yeah, you're in a scenario here where two of these films are very well reviewed. Crime 101 and Send Help are very well reviewed and very well received, but they just aren't gathering the audience to make their money back, unfortunately. So what's the issue here? And I think it's a slightly different issue all on the board. The big issue for all these guys is, well, particularly for Send Help. Send Help actually has a bigger issue than the other two, or different issue than the other two. Crime 101. Honestly, I don't think this film was ever going to make a big amount of money. It was never going to make its money back. It's made on too large of a budget. I've said this already before about other movies like Mercy, but Amazon doesn't know how to budget its films properly yet. They're new to the movie-going game, and they just do not know how to budget their movies. And it's unfortunate, but I can't be surprised, because Amazon really hasn't been in the movie-going game in the same capacity as the other big studios. They still have their studio, but they're now really moving into theatrical, and you just need to learn to balance. Granted, Amazon has so much money to burn in this category that they can take these hits, and it's not that big a deal. I Can Only Imagine 2 is, what did the original Only Imagine? Let's see here. I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Can you imagine? Can you only imagine? Let's see now. I can only imagine. What did it actually? Okay, the first Only Imagine came out in 2018. The inspiring and unknown true story behind Mercy Me's beloved top-charting song that brings ultimate hope, so many, and a gripping reminder of the power of true forgiveness. And I know it's a little bit of faith-based, all that. Made $86 million against a $7 million budget. Look, Roadside Attractions, which clearly now is Lionsgate. Lionsgate owns this property. Look, they had a hit on their hand there. However, because it's based off a true story, I don't know if the reason they waited, where it was, it's 2016, 8 years to do a sequel, is because it's based off a true story, based off a real guy, therefore they had to wait for something actually to happen, or if it's because they just didn't think, oh yeah, let's make another. That thing made bank on little. Why don't we do it again? You have to know your properties, guys. You have to know the type of films that people go, yeah, I did an Only Imagine 2. Who are the people who are asking for that? It made a huge profit, but it didn't make hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, in the grand scheme of things, a very finite amount of people went to see that film. So, frankly, I'm going to be honest, probably just shouldn't have been made. I'm not judging the film for its quality, by the way. I'm just saying it probably shouldn't have been made. And then Send Help has the problem. I think it just has the problem of bad timing for its release. It got released at the end of January, and January is notoriously a dumping ground month for movies. The only other month that doesn't have $100 million opening weekend is October. But October is October. And if I remember, no, Beetlejuice came out in September. It's got $100 million plus opening weekend. No, it's October with like a $96 million opening weekend or 90, something like that for Joker, the first one. But that's not a dumping ground month movie because of just how many types of films come in. If you actually look at the top 10 of, and since I got this over here, we can just do that. If you actually look at the top 10 of October versus the top 10 of January, you will notice a very distinct disparity between the top, let's try that again, weekend records. You'll notice a very distinct disparity between the top 10 and the difference in between them. So Joker, the original Joker, 96 million. But then, Venom, which Taylor Swift's Eras Tour, 93 million. Venom, Let There Be Carnage, 90 million. The original Venom, 80 million. Five Nights at Freddy's, a little under 80 million, a little under that. 76, 67, 55. Then you get somewhat of a jump down. I mean, you get a jump between 3 and 4, but not enough. A big one. No Time to Die, 55, and the Martian. Sorry, I'm saying Manhattan, 54. Okay, like that's, you got a good even change up between each one. Now let's look at January. American Sniper, 89 million. Okay, but then you get a 20 million drop from 1 to 2. Then another 20 million drop from 2 to 3. And then you middle around in the top 10 a little bit. Like all the remaining top 10 of the top 10 are stuck between 37 and 41. And you think at those numbers, you could find something that can open up to $42 million more or more to like kick something out. But nope. There has not been a new member of the top 10 of January since 2020 with Bad Boys for Life. That's 6 years, which is insane to think about, but that's 6 years. January just has a very, very bad rep for movies. It does. And to be fair, they kind of just dump movies that shouldn't work, but do. I mean, to be fair, I think, what was it? One of the Screams opened up in January? One of the relatively newest ones? Yeah, the first reboot of Scream, first requel, if you will, of Scream 2022, opened in January, made 30 million. I am curious if this Scream, if they had done that, would have also opened to like this 64 million it opened up on, which would have put it at the number 2 spot and knocked out The Lone Survivor. But I don't know. So for Send Help, I really think it was just the timing. So beyond that, though, there's not much else to talk about. Zootopia 2 is currently at $1,859 million. I'm calling it. It's not going to be able to do it. And Avatar Fire and Ash is at $1,480 million. And it's not hitting 1.8 or 1.5. Otherwise, it's a pretty like standard weekend. Like I think also Scream actually overperformed, if I'm not mistaken. And good for it. I mean, look, I've heard it was really bad, so I probably will not end up seeing it. But I'm not going to disparage any film that does well, because that's good for the overall health of the box office. So if it does well, regardless if it's good or bad, good for it. So next week's box office, or this week's box office, is The Bride and Hoppers. I'm gonna go. It's gonna be one or the other. I think is number 1 and number 2. I will put Hoppers over The Bride because it's got Disney, got Pixar behind it. It's a 4-quadrant film for kids, new animated film out. Then I'll put The Bride. Then I'll put Screen 7. Then I'm going to put Goat and Wuthering Heights. That's my prediction for next week. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. See you next time.